Okay, so I'm not really great at these video tutorials, but I've been getting a lot of requests and the weather's horrible today. So let's try to tie uh, the EP baitfish, right? It's an EP baitfish, but it's tied in a way where it's not going to easily foul up, right? The material is not going to foul around the hook, and it's always going to maintain that perfect baitfish profile, which is really important, especially if you are fishing clear, slow water, right? Where you're not able to really strip this fly a lot. You want to keep it in front of the fish. A lot of materials like crapper and marabou are going to flutter quite a bit, which is great in a lot of situations. But in some situations, you want a fish or a fly that's going to maintain that shape and profile, and sort of maintain its depth in the water column, right? And you're able to now sort of twitch or move that fly while keeping it in the strike zone. And how I tie that is pretty simple, right? I really like these Arex SA280 hooks, SA280 minnow hooks. They're great. They have a short shank, which helps, to keep that material from fouling around it as well. But I'll also tie them on these Umpqua all-purpose hooks, which are also great. Little longer shank, interesting shape, and those keep fish, especially little tarpons, stuck really well. But these are usually my go-to. I tie them on 2s, 4s. We're going to tie a small one on a 4 today. And it's a pretty simple fly to tie, right? The only hard part people have trouble with is the dubbing loop, but I'll show you how to do that pretty simply. All right, we start. Make sure this is, you see that all right? Looks pretty good. All right, we just start with the hook, get it in your vise. We're gonna tie it in black today. Thread your bobbin, which is the most difficult part of fly tying. All right, throw a good base down on the hook. And end it right behind the point, right between the point and the barb. It's usually a good spot. All right, and we're just going to take some EP fiber. This is actually Congo hair from Fly Tier's Dungeon. I just took one little hank, cut it in half. Got 2 pieces. We're going to take one. Doesn't have to be a lot of material, Trim it down to size. We're going to fold it over, so you want it about 3 times the size of the hook. Shank. You can taper it a little if you want. Throw that on. Just takes a couple wraps, right? 1, 2, 3 light wraps. Tighten it down a little bit. And don't be afraid to manipulate it. Really make sure it's where you want it, because we're going to tie this down and then we don't want it to move, right? So get a couple wraps on there, kind of push it with your finger, pull it, whatever you have to do. Make sure it's on there good. Take that top portion, fold it back. Same thing, throw a couple wraps on it. Make sure it's where you want it. You can even take a brush, kind of brush it out. And go tie it down right in front, okay? And that's it. That's the back of our minnow. A lot of the bottom's going to be trimmed. Okay. And then I'll usually throw a little veil of craft fur on it. In this case, I just have some dubbing from Worldwide Fly Works. I think it's also from Fly Tyer's Dungeon, the mohair, I believe it's called. And it's like a craft fur dubbing material, more like dubbing. But this just gives it a little bit of flutter, a little veil. It'll hold water better than the EP fiber. And it'll help to keep that nice back profile. And you just tie it in the same way as the EP. And then tie it back on top of that bump where you tied the EP in, right? So we're going back to the same exact spot we tied that EP in. And that's it. Make sure it's tied in really well and on top of the hook, right? You see, I didn't fold it around to the bottom of the hook there. It's all on top. All right. And that's pretty much it. Those are the 2 steps. If you want, you can throw a little flash in here. You know, any material, any type of, you know, chenille, Palmer chenille, polar chenille, little flashy dubbing. But this is where you would tie it in, and I can just throw a little in to show you, right? This is just some big hank of fish flash. Cut a little off. Make sure it's the right size. And this we can put under, right? This will be like a gill or a belly flash. And we simply tie that in right there. Make sure it's the right length, pull it around to the other side, tie it in right there. And now we got a nice belly of flash. Okay, beautiful. And here's the tricky part. This is where people get stuck. We're gonna take our thread and we're gonna make a dubbing loop. We're simply gonna pull it back to our chest, use our finger to form a loop, wrap it back up the hook, and here's the trick, right? Wrap over it, and then you can use that loop to pull your bobbin wherever you want it to tie it off, right? Because we want to tie it off right behind or right in front of where we tied in that last material. We want to be right on top of it. That way when we start to palmer that forward, there's no gaps. We're going to go from the tail to the flash to the dubbing loop. All right, swap that off, throw that over there. Now here's the fun part, and this gets really easy once you do it a few times. Simply take a pair of pliers, or they make special tools to spin these loops. I like the pliers, they're heavy, I can spin them real well. And then we're gonna take a unusually large hank of the EP fiber. And we are going to fold and cut this down into half-inch, 1-inch pieces, about that much, about an inch. Usually, once I fold it in half, I'll get 3 nice pieces. And you can use your fingers, that's what I did for years, or you can get a chip clip out of your pantry and just pick it all up with that. So now you have all your EP fiber in the chip clip. I'll use a little dubbing wax, or they make a dubbing wax, or Elmer's glue works good if you have a little kid. but I have a glue stick. Go find it. And that's it. You open up this loop, throw this dubbing in. Once you get it locked down, you just remove your chip clip. I like to spread it out a little. And don't let this part, frustrate you. This is what people get stuck on. It's real easy. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just try to make sure you don't have any big gaps where you're missing fiber. We don't have a lot to cover. It doesn't need to be huge. And then we just hang our pliers down here and start spinning. Spin till you can't spin anymore. Grab the pliers, pull towards you, let go. Just let it spin up. And spin it a lot. It's gonna all twist up and tangle up. You're gonna have to pick it out. But this eliminates the wire, right? You can use a brush. They're just very expensive and they're heavy. You have a metal wire in it, so it's gonna defeat the purpose of a lot of these flies when you want them to be light and sit in a specific area in the water column. And that's it, man. You can take a brush, you can take something like a bobkin and just pick it all out. Could take a minute, could be tedious, but it's worth it, and it'll save you a lot of money and a lot of weight. That's why I use 150 denier. This is probably a Vivas thread. So you don't want to break your thread at this point. But if you're using 140 or 150, it's pretty strong stuff. That's it. If you twist it up enough, you don't have to be afraid to really brush it hard. Try to get those bumps out, any clumps. You can even use a, coarser wire brush to really get it brushed out. And this technique is just, a huge advantage, right, for a lot of flies. It's just a great way to, finish or tie a head on your baitfish flies or a body on shrimp flies. It just eliminates all that wire you get when you use a brush, and you can use any material. You can make, blends and patterns and add little rubber legs, add feathers. It's just such a great technique to know how to do, and it's that easy. Chip clip will make your life a lot easier. And that's it. You just want to palmer this on. Kind of push or brush the fibers back as you go. Nice touching wraps. Way you make a nice thick head, right? I'll tie these extremely sparse sometimes, but if I want them to, sink very slow, kind of sit halfway in the water column, and keep that profile, I'll tie them very thick. I'll tie them extremely thick, and I'll trim them down to the shape that I want. That way it maintains that shape, even when in the water, right? Something like EP fiber is not going to hold water like a lot of other materials. And it's not going to flutter as much or be manipulated as much by the water when you're stripping it. All right, cut that off. If you have enough, save it, use it for another one. Always better to have a little more than not enough. Tie it off real well. Throw a few. Oh. Alright, sorry guys. Throw a few whip finishes in it. That's it, you're good to go. There's a few different ways you can trim it. I try to keep it simple because I can get kind of stuck for way too long on trimming these flies. But just take a brush, brush it out real good. Kind of trim up around the head, round off the sides. Don't be afraid to trim these. You got a lot of material on there. It's not going to compress like a lot of others when in the water. So don't be afraid to trim it all down into the shape that you want, right? And then when it comes to the bottom, I'll usually trim up to that hook point and then start trimming a taper back. And same thing, just come in, kind of round off the edges. Trim down the head a little more. And sorry, I should probably be doing this in here. That's it. It's that easy. And now you have a nice, perfect baitfish fly. It's going to maintain its shape and profile in the water. It's going to be extremely light to cast. It's going to hit the water very softly. And yeah, I hope that helped. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. And if you need some flies, let me know. I'll whip you a dozen up. All right, thanks.